Okay, so we were in the previous link we discussed in the previous session we discussed about high frequency lexicon test. I was telling you about another test that you kind of test that you can also take, because frequency lexicon test is a kind of test. There is another test which is called and conk test, right? It is free and you can use the same test for the same purpose. So that test is free. I've used it, and you can very easily find out the frequency. But in that test, you need to put the words yourself, and then it will identify it. For example, the text is given in the software, and then you will identify by yourself that you'll give how many times on is used, how many times is used, how many times I is used, how many times shall is used, how many times is used. So this is how you're going to identify. If you remember, we discussed Joe Manino's case in the class, in the very first class, in which was a YouTube video that I we discussed in our first class. In Joe Manino's case, if you remember, he was identified because of the uh, kind of adjectives that he was using, because he was using very different adjectives, and he was using double adjectives, for example, very and then adjective, and not double adjectives, but an adverb and then an adjective. So he was using intensifiers a lot, and that is how he got caught by the linguist, that he was the person who wrote the suicide note and it wasn't anyone else. So this is how we get to know. Coming towards, I hope you're clear about high lexicon test. Uh, Authors themselves are susceptible to inconsistency, which are more systematic than in generally acknowledged. So it why we are discussing authors, because we are talking about authorship, and authorship is linked with someone who has written anything. So if a novel is written by anyone, it is it is a conscious or unconscious effort of making your text good, right? But at the same time, if the author has written something, you can identify that it is the same person who has written this text. And same goes for someone who is a culprit or someone who has committed a crime or something like that, right? So you what an author does is that sometimes they um, are inconsistent in what they are writing. For example, today I'm writing something and tomorrow I'm writing something, it's going to be completely different, but their genres are in the same genres that they are writing. Their genres are same. For example, if I am writing a novel which is adventurous, and then I'm writing another novel which is romantic. So the both in both of the novels, I am going to be inconsistent. How I'm going to be inconsistent? Because the kind of words that I'm using for adventurous novel is going to be completely different from the kind of the kind of words that I'm using for a romantic novel. So uh, even within genres, we have we do not see that the same author would write the same things. And that is how we have linked this chapter is covering three things, that is time, variation and genre, because all these three are linked together: variation, time and genre. Maybe they are similar, maybe they are not similar. You'll conduct a research in any case, and then you're going to conclude on basis of that. If you can see these two words, entropy and ectropy, right? These are the two words that are going to be repeated in this chapter, so you need to understand these words. What is the meaning of these words? Authors apparently individualistic features yield to the inevitable forces of social and personal entropy. We have already discussed social and personal in style, if you remember. In that is, social factors are, for example, culture, or from the area that they belong to, or these are the social, or identity or ideology. These are the social factors. A personal is also ideolect, right? Entropy and ectropy is that in entropy there is decay of certain words, And ectropy, there is growth of certain words or language, right? So for example, this one word is uh, extending its meaning to multiple words. That comes in actropy. Means another word is added to a conversation, or the single word is used for um, multiple meanings. For example, the word gay was previously used for being happy, but now it's not used for that. It has completely changed its meaning. There are certain words which are completely obsolete, which are not used in the conversation at all. Those, that is decay, like we don't use those words. Uh, f- um, and 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 s- uh, similarly similarly then we have certain words which has extended its meaning. So for example, one word is franchise. So franchise was first a word which was used in one meaning, but then now it is extending its meaning in different, or outlet, right? It extends its meaning. Yes, anyone wants to ask a question? Your mic is switched on. Whose mic is switched on? Please switch off the mic. Who is it? Saad? Okay, thank you. I hope it is clear so far. So if you can see this, ideolect is actually a linguistic fingerprint, right? The kind of language that you use is actually a linguistic fingerprint. So you cannot avoid this fingerprint with the kind of a language that you use, and you'll be, no matter how much you try to hide yourself, how much you try to uh, make fool of someone, you'd still be able to get identified, because linguistic fingerprint is always there. The kind of language that you use is always there, and that's how we all will get to know that this person is the culprit. Okay. How do we study, or test a genre? I mean, testing a genre, you normally identify functional words. Anyone who can tell me what are functional words? What are functional words? Can you all hear me, or you people have switched on over here and then you have gone?
Yes, we can hear you, but we don't have an idea about function words.
No one has got any idea about function words?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, function. There are two types of words. We have content words and we have function words, right? Function words are, for example, articles or auxiliaries that we use, right? Or for example, these adverbs of quantifiers that we use. For example, some people use many, many, many more, right? Or some people use very, a lot. These are the words which are the which are which you can say are the function words. Or pronouns are the function words as well. Model auxiliaries and qualifiers, these all are function words. And content words include noun, adjectives, adverbs. So we identify, we normally, within genre, we try to identify um, through function words. There was a test conducted, and it was a computational study. In computational studies, we try to identify, we compute the words, like how many words are used. So for example, how many function words are used, or how many content words are used. Or there is another you can say division of it, which is different kind, but uh, like for example, we have noun and verbs are which kind of words in like when we are writing a when we are writing a title, in research title, you are taught that there are certain words that you'll keep capitalized. Their first letter would be capitalized, and there are certain words which would not be capitalized. Which type of words are these?
Ma'am, are you talking about that open class and
Very
closed
good.
class?
Yes. So then we have open and closed classes as well, but their division is different. But for example, if someone wants to identify a genre on the basis of not on the basis of function and content word, but on the basis of open and closed classes, they can also do that. So it is the choice of the researcher, right? It is the choice of the researcher. But here we are discussing only one study, which is given as an example, and that I hope you all can see the screen, and it is used as an example, and in that example they are using function words, right? The person has identified the authors through the function words. So um, in we are going to study all the genre, and how we see that if a same person is writing a novel and the same person is writing in two different genres, so how their language would change. And why are we studying it? I'll tell you before discussing the rest of this chapter, because they have not said anything about it in here. We are discussing it because, for example, if a criminal has written something in one at one time, and the text says something completely different, which is actually they are writing a suicide note, and they have never written any suicide note before, but you are comparing it with the normal conversation of someone, right? So this is a practice, and this is a study, a computational study that you can conduct as a forensic linguist to identify whether this person has actually written the suicide note or not, because you're going to analyze it, because you're going to analyze studying it from two different genres, studying it from two different genres perspective, studying it from the similar genres perspective, studying it from two different authors similar genre, and to one similar and two different authors in two different genres. See, can you see this diagram? It is genre one authors. This is how we're going to study it, that author one and author two has written the same thing, so how are they related with one another? This all we're going to discuss in today's class. Okay. Genre, we do not mean that traditional structuring and classifying a mainly literary textual universe, but the linguistic, sociological, psychological assumptions underlying shaping and shaping these texts. So what we are going to discuss over here is we're going to discuss ideolectical approaches, and we are going to discuss the stylistic analysis of it, or syntactic analysis of it. Now, our task as a linguist is not to see whether it is a romantic genre, or whether it is a novel, or whether it is a drama. No, we are not concerned regarding that genre. We are concerned regarding the genre that is associated with what the person is writing. A person linguistic, a person sociological, and psychological assumptions. Now, when a person is writing something, we keep in mind, in forensic linguistics, this genre means that the person is writing as a, as a psychopath. Is the person psychopath? What is the kind of a language that he's using? So we form our assumption on the basis of these three things about certain text, right? We base it on the basis of a linguistic, that is, from which area the person belongs, or from which era the person belongs, or from which social background the person belongs, or if the person in his sane mind. If you remember, I told you about this one case in which uh, a like, when you how do you get to know that the person is 100% going to commit that crime? For example, the psychological assumption is that the person, when says that, he was a good person, so when the person says that he was a good person, automatically this thing comes to your mind that something kind of has already happened. This is the psychological assumption of it. Or for example, if someone says that I may do it, so when you say I may do it, this is the psychological assumption about the person, that there is a possibility that this person will not going to do it, he has no guts to do it. However however when there is this certain thing, for example, a person says that you may not know that what I would do to you, right? You cannot even imagine what I would do to you. or I will do to you. There is this difference, that though the person is very 100% sure while saying that you may not believe that what I would do to you, I would do, means that the person will be mild in doing something, right? But when they say I will do to you, then there is a possibility that the person the kind of claims that the person is making are very dangerous, and the person might do it as well. I hope you all are getting my points. The example is clear to you all. What kind of genre I'm talking about?
Yes, ma'am. We are clear, but ma'am, how, yeah, as you have given the example of that adventurous novel and romantic novel,
Hmm.
like, ma'am, how that can be related to this genre?
Oh,
Now you are explaining,
let
like
me
you are saying.
okay. Let me give an answer to that. When I told you about the romantic novel, and when I told you about the different novel, that is, for example, adventurous novel, these two are compared with, though the same author has written it. Remember, I just a few minutes ago I gave you this example that, I if I have written a text when I was writing a suicide note, because I have not written any other suicide note, or when I have not written any other statement, right? But I am comparing that statement, that write up of a criminal or a suspect, with something that he has written in a completely different text, that is maybe a conversation with his mother, or maybe a conversation with his loved one. You're comparing two completely different genres, right? You're comparing the text of someone with completely different thing, because that's the only thing which is available to you. In his mobile, the text messages which are available, or the known writings, we call it known writings, right? The known writings which are available are only available in different contexts, and is not available for the suicide note. I'm going to give you example from Joe Manino's case. We have already discussed Joe Manino's case. So, in Joe Manino's case, when the text is compared with the known writings were not suicide notes that he has written all the time. He's not writing suicide notes all the time. He has written a suicide note for the first time. And you're comparing that writings of suicide note with something which is not written as a suicide note, which is not something which is very depressing, or which is not something that the person is going to take his or her life. It is something which is, for example, they have taken the text of his conversation with his two friends with whom he was living. So the comparison that is made with in two completely different genres, in two completely different times, when the sociological factors and the psychological factors are completely different at that time, right? So we base our assumptions on all these bases, and we compare it. That is why we are studying this all, that how this all is different, and how can you identify it. Is it clear, Danish? That why
Yes,
have
ma'am.
I? Okay, good. Let's
Yes,
move
ma'am. Yes,
ahead.
ma'am.
Let's move ahead.
Ma'am,
Yes, yes.
ma'am, ma'am, from where we can get this lecture? Like, I,
Who is
yes,
who's saying?
Ayaz,
Okay, yes, I ask. Please
Ayaz.
ask. What do you want to ask? I ask.
Ayaz, I have an internet problem. I
Do
didn't
you
get
have
it.
internet problem? It's okay.
I
Just
didn't get it, ma'am.
just can you hear me? If you cannot hear me and you have internet problem, then disconnect.
The sound is not coming properly.
I'm recording this lecture so you can listen to the lecture later. Okay.
Okay,
So
from where, ma'am? You will send the link.
Ayaz, I cannot hear you properly. There is a chat box. Can you type your concerns over there? There is a chat box. Yes, I'm going to upload this. Yes, I'm going to upload this. Okay, I'm going to give the link in your LMS, and then you can click the link and go to the same lecture. But that does not mean that everyone leave the class. Okay, let's continue. Um, right, there are two perspectives that are talked about when there is study of um, forensic analysis. One is the ideolectical approach and the other is the stylistic analysis. So ideolectical approach, I've already told you, that is to link only the words. So for example, if you have two texts, right, text A and text B, and you are comparing text A with text B, this text A is already a suicide note which is committed, on which you are confused whether the same person has written it or not. And text B is the known writings of the person, right? So, idealectical approach would be only comparing the similar writings, similar words, right? And not comparing anything and not comparing anything else. But stylistic analysis would include everything. I mean to say, not just the words, not just the choice of words, not just the pronunciation, but every stylistic, everything, which is like, for example, even the sentence structure, the kind of the kind of the words that are used, that would be the stylistic analysis of it, right? So there are multiple ways of comparing two or three texts, but this is there are idealectical approach. Certain forensic linguists believe in idealectical approach, and certain believe in stylistic analysis. Though stylistic analysis is you can say that idealectical approach is one of the parts of stylistic analysis. So towards the end, you can go towards idealectical analysis even in stylistic analysis as well. uh, Danish, switch off your mic.
Sorry, ma'am.
Okay. uh, let's go towards the next page so that we can hurry. Okay. Expected and unexpected relationships in the genre domain. Now, uh, as we have already discussed what is genre, so we are going to discuss the expected and unexpected relationships in the genre domain. If you can see the diagram, you'll get to know what we are talking about, right? What we are going to study in this is what factors influence the success of an attribution of a genre text to its author. That is, okay, this meeting is going to end in 10 minutes. Okay, the things that I'm going to discuss in this meeting are going to end. I'm going to conclude it over here in 10 minutes, and then we are going to continue the same in our next class, because I cannot take more than 2 hours of my students. Okay. Expected and unexpected relationships in genre domain. So what are those factors which influence the success of an attribution of a genre text to its author? That is, वो कौन सी चीज़ें हैं, ठीक है, जो कि इन्फ्लुएंस करती हैं हमें ये आइडेंटिफाई करने में कि ये ऑथर, इस बंदे ने ये टेक्स्ट लिखा हुआ है. So this would mean that all those factors which lead to getting to know that the person who has written the text and identifying the author of that text. So author in the factors which lead to the authorship attribution, in short. We would usually expect that two texts by the same author in the same genre would probably have more in common with each other than the respective words of different authors working within the same genre. As in just for the assumption, we would assume that if the same author has written something in the same genre, that would have a lot of things in common, So I'll give you an example that if I have written a romantic novel and I have written another romantic novel, so you would expect that that my writings are going to be similar in both of the novels. That is what people expect it to be, right? Because I'm the same author, and my ideological approach says that my writings would be similar across the board if I'm writing in the same genre, and my stylistic approach would also be same. So this is my assumption. Now let us see that this expectations how these expectations are seen in this diagram. If you see that the diagram shows that there is this A1 and there is this A2, right? This A1 and A2 means that the same genre, if you see the circle is same, right? Can you see the circle? So in genre 1, the author has written the same in the same genre. Author A has written the same text, A and A, right? That is, um, if the author has written in the same genre, we expect that that there is going to be ideological approach and stylistic analysis is going to be similar of these two authors. So if I have written if I have written two novels, both in a romantic novel, or both a tragedy, so you would expect my writings to be similar. The same kind of words would be written over there. I was reading a novel. I don't remember the word, um, but but the author has repeated the same word time and again. If I got to find it out, I am going to share it uh, with uh, with one of your class fellows, and they can share it in the group, and then you'll get to know. I'll find the word. So the author has written the same word time and again. Through that text, we can know that if the author is writing the same thing once again, means the author is writing the same kind of novel once again. So the author would use the same kind of word. The author is going to repeat the same kind of words in the other novel as well, right? Authors producing work in the same genre as each other, that is, author A's two works, that is A1 and AB, are expected to be similar to each other, then either work would be to that of author B. If, for example, this B is, let's suppose Danish, right? So I have written two novels, and Danish has written one novel. If I have written, and we both have written novels, both have written romantic novels, right? So if Danish writing is never going to be similar to me, is it like that? I'm asking you all a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it going to be like that?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
And
So,
there will be a lot of differences.
but there are going
Ma'am,
to be a lot
language
of
difference.
differences. Exactly.
Language
why
difference,
why is
style.
going to be that language and exactly language and style differences? Because we two are two different people.
Yes, ma'am. If he write the second novel, so then we will be easily also concluded that this writing of this person.
Ma'am,
Exactly.
selection of words will be different, completely different.
Exactly. Why the selection of word is going to be different? Because I'm a different person and Danish is a different person. So we two have different idealects, right? That is why the choice of word is going to be different. Words are going to be different. He is using different words and I'm using different words, right? But sometimes it happens that in certain particular case, we see that author A uh, is using and author B are similar in their writings, but my writing to my own writing is different. It might also happen, right? It might also happen. But once it happens, then you are able to identify that why it has happened. Now, if you remember, we discussed. I gave you a task and in the class, and we discussed this one novel, Da Vinci Code, on which there was a case that certain people said that this novel was copy from the novel of from their novel Da Vinci Code. If you remember, we discussed it in the class.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes,
We remember.
exactly. this is the authorship case. This is where the forensic linguist comes in. And forensic linguist, what is forensic linguist doing? Forensic linguist is comparing authors A writing with authors B. Let's suppose, let me give you an example. I am influenced by Danish work and I copy certain part of Danish work. I'm author A, I'm writing it in the same genre, right? But my writing is similar to Danish work. But then I write another novel, and that novel is completely different from my own writing. But my own writing is similar to Danish writing. Is it making sense?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we
Yes,
can
ma'am.
also come to the old writing style.
Exactly, from the old writing style. So, is this example making sense to you? Because I'm not, my face is not visible to you, so it's not a class, it's a virtual class, so I
Ma'am,
hope you are
ma'am,
getting it.
that copyright thing.
Exactly, copyright thing. So how is it linked with forensic linguistics? Though here we can identify that my writing is similar to B's writing, but that is A's writing is similar to B's writing, but then A's own writing in the same genre is different from what A has written previously, right?
Yes, ma'am. We can take the old records.
Exactly, so it may happen, it may happen due to many reasons. Then you're going to identify why it has happened. अब मैं आपको example देती हूँ. We are left with 2 minutes in this session, and then I'm not going to give you another link. Okay, we are going to start it from the new class. So for example, if a person has written, if you remember, we discussed statements of police officers. अगर आप लोगों को याद हो, police officers के हमने cases discuss
Yes,
किए थे.
ma'am. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
एग्जैक्टली
Ma'am.
उनके दोनों के दो डिफरेंट लोग हैं, लेकिन A1 और B के जो है वो स्टेटमेंट्स मिलते थे. लेकिन अगर A1 ने कोई और केस का स्टेटमेंट लिखा है तो वो A1 का और A2 का बिल्कुल डिफरेंट है. आपको मेरी बात की समझ आ रही है अब?
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Yes.
For example, I am the police officer and let's suppose कायनात is the police officer. ठीक है, कायनात की और मेरी कन्वर्सेशन स्टेटमेंट में बिल्कुल सेम है. हमने एक ड्रंक को पकड़ा है, हम दोनों की स्टेटमेंट बिल्कुल सेम है, एग्जैक्टली सेम है. ठीक है, लेकिन मैंने एक और ड्रंक को भी पकड़ा है और मैंने उसकी भी स्टेटमेंट लिखी है. लेकिन मैंने जो स्टेटमेंट एक ही दिन पे लिखी हुई है वो कायनात की और मेरी सिमिलर है, लेकिन वो मेरी अपनी राइटिंग से दूसरा वाला डिफरेंट है. समझ आ गई? तो अब
मैम, क्योंकि
यहाँ
आपने उस सेकंड वाले को
मैंने
कॉपी किया है.
कॉपी किया है. एग्जैक्टली, वी आर लेफ्ट विद 30 seconds. I hope you all got this point that sometimes unexpected relationship between the genre internal authors may also happen. ठीक है, कभी ना कभी दो authors जो हैं वो similar भी लिख सकते हैं आपस में, एक ही genre में, एक ही जॉनरा में सिमिलर भी लिख सकते हैं. उसके पीछे फोरेंसिक लिंग्विस्ट को रीजन ढूंढनी पड़ती है कि वो अनएक्सपेक्टेडली हो गया है कि वो एक्सपेक्टेडली हो गया है. ठीक है, गलती से हुआ है कि नहीं, इंटेंशनली हुआ है, अनइंटेंशनली हुआ है कि इंटेंशनली हुआ है. I'll continue in the next class, inshallah. We'll just